What if the 13th's fall wasn't a sacrifice, but a betrayal etched in the fabric of time? Their reflection drowned in darkness, Zodiark's the accident. Its premeditated people defiance, Zodiark's the accident chains, Ascians' grand design unraveled not by fate. Zodiark's the accident chains, Ascians' grand design unraveled not by fate, but by a hand they least expected. What did Venat see in the far future to turn the 13th's end into a blade aimed at the gods themselves? The Rejoining was never a path to unity, it was a cage. The 13th's fall fractured its chains, not forged them. Venat's vision saw not doom but defiance, a reflection severing its tether to the source, trading eternity for a weapon against the Ascians' design. Aetheres trembles on a blade's edge, its fractured light the price of halting Zodiark's ascent. If the sundering was a war, the final days are its siege. The Ascians did not lose at the paused asterisk. Their schemes outlive empires, their patience measured in star deaths. What if the Rejoining's mercy was a trap? What if every soul drawn to the source is another thread in a net, waiting to snare the 13th's heir? The cosmos bends not toward fate, but toward a reckoning, and Aetheres, fragile as a dying breath, holds the only key. The 13th's reflection drowned in void light, its people hollowed by the Ascians' stolen Rejoining. A failed resurrection of Zodiark, per Encyclopedia Erzia II it, not a failure for the 13th. Venat's defiance fractured Aetheres, scattering his will into 14. The Convocation's birth was no accident, it was a splinter in the Ascians' design. They sought to bind the 13th's heir to Zodiark's revival. Instead, the heir turned the void against its masters. A betrayal etched in darkness, not sacrifice. The Rejoining's corruption, a mirror held to the Ascians' own hunger. 14 shards, 14 strikes against a timeline bent to their will. Aetheres bleeds, but its fracture is a weapon. The 13th did not falsely buried a god's gambit in the bones of their world. And the void sent those twisted echoes, whisper a truth older than the maelstrom. Some pacts are broken to become chains. The reckoning does not wait. The Encyclopedia Erzia Roman 3 calls it a failure, a shard flooded with darkness, its people twisted into void sent. You've read it. You've accepted it, but what if the ink itself is a lie? The Rejoining was no accident. The Ascians sought to bind the 13th's reflection to the source, to erase its will as they erased all others. Yet the 13th did not kneel, it weaponized the ritual. Darkness did not spill, it was poured. A tide of stolen void, a mirror of the Ascians' own corruption, turned their merging into a funeral pyre. The void sent are not victims, they are witnesses. Their wails carved the truth into the shard's bones. This was rebellion, Venat knew. The architect of Aetheres' fracture understood the price of unity. 14 shards, 14 safeties, a labyrinth to cage Zodiark's shadow. But the 13th's defiance rewrote the plan. Where the Ascians saw a tool, they found a weapon. The Rejoining's collapse shattered more than a reflection. It split the Ascians' own design, their hierarchy of control unraveling as the 13th's will bled into the source. The void sent wander, but their masters, due to fractured, hunted, their order turned to ash. Can you feel it? The weight of a shard that refused to die. The scent of ozone in its air, the taste of something not quite light or dark. The 13th's reflection is a scar, yes, but also a snare. Every void sent howl is a coded message. Every twisted form a monument to defiance. The Ascians built their empire on inevitability. The 13th proved inevitability is a myth. What remains is a question the void sent cannot answer. A pact broken, yes, but to what end? The 13th's choice did not save the world, it changed the rules. And in the silence between stars, where the source bleeds into the void, something stirs. Not Zodiark, not the Ascians. Something forged in the fire of betrayal. The reckoning does not wait, it is already here. The 13th's reflection was not a pawn, it was a weapon they failed to wield. The Ascians struck first, their void tendrils coiling around the shard, seeking to shatter it open, a test, a prototype for the Rejoinings to come. They believed the 13th's light would bend, that its essence would fuel Zodiark's rebirth, but the shard did not break, it twisted asterisk. A prison formed not for the reflection, but for the Ascians' own corruption. The screams etched into the void are not the 13ths, they are the Ascians, trapped in the very they forged. What became of their experiments? The Voidsent are not mindless horrors. They are fragments of the 13th's defiance, its light warped into claws, its will into teeth. Each one gnaws at the Ascians' design, a reminder that their test was turned against them. The first rejoining was no accident, it was a declaration. The 13th chose to let the Ascians in, to let them touch the shard, so they might be consumed by it. A gambit buried in the encyclopedia's footnotes, a single line about anomalous energy signatures in the Elpis chain, the void here is older than the stars. It remembers, the Ascians thought they were harvesting power, they harvested a curse. The 13th's prison grows with every failed experiment, every Voidsent birth a monument to sabotage. The shard's core still pulses, not with weakness, but with fractured defiance. What does it mean that the Voidsent evolve ? That they learn ? The Ascians' own notes, scrawled in the raid tomes, hint at something stirring within the prison's depths, a consciousness. A plan, they called it a sacrifice, it was a trap. The 13th's fall was not an end, it was a beginning . And the Ascians, in their arrogance, have spent centuries feeding the very thing they sought to destroy. The Voidsent are not the future of darkness, they are the past, the present, and the reckoning yet to come. The 13th's pact was never with the void, it was with the truth *, and truths, once awakened, do not sleep again. What if the 13th's fall was not a tragic end, but a calculated betrayal? Venat, as Hydaelyn's final breath, cleaved Aetheres into 14 shards not to scatter light, but to chain shadow. Each shard a prism, each prism a prison. The convocation of 14 was no council of equals. It was a mosaic of locks, a labyrinth built to starve Zodiark of the whole. The Ascians, blind to this design, sought to fuse the shards, believing they shaped fate. But the 13th knew their rejoining was a lie, a script written in Venat's blood. The 13th's descent was no accident. A shard's edge sliced through the Ascians' hierarchy like a blackened blade. Where others mirrored, the 13th remembered . They had tasted Venat's intent, the quiet hum of a safeguard, the weight of a god's last act. To fracture the convocation was to unmake the Ascians' puppetry, to let Zodiark's chains rust. The rejoining's failure was not a flaw. It was the 13th's signature, etched in defiance. Can you hear it? The resonance of a plan older than the first Erzea. The shards, once fused, would have fed Zodiark a false completeness, but the 13th's betrayal splintered that illusion. The Ascians, in their panic, became their own undoing. Their obsession with unity blinded them to the truth. Balance was never meant to be restored. It was meant to be reclaimed . The cost was a kingdom, a name erased, a light smothered. Yet in that smothering, a seed took root. The 13th's pact was not with death, but with absence, the void left when a lie is stripped away. They became the wound that healed the world, and Zodiark. Bound not by force but by the 13th's refusal to play the role written for them, the convocation's fractures still bleed. The Ascians' fear still echoes, but in that echo lies the answer. The rejoining was never about revival, it was about remembrance . A reckoning of scales, not souls, and the 13th, fallen and forgotten, became the fulcrum. Balance is not a state. It is a scar, a testament to the one who dared to unmake the future. The Ascians weave a tale of necessity. They claim the 13th's fall sealed Zodiark's slumber. Yet their fear betrays them. Defiance was never failure. The rejoining's collapse did not unleash chaos, it buried it. The 13th's hand struck the dagger into the pact they once shared. Did the Ascians foresee this? Or did they fracture what they could not unmake? Grief is not in the loss of balance. It is in the weight of the choice no god should bear. The sundered self did not break. It chose to shatter, knowing the price. A betrayal etched in Hydaelyn's own light. The scar we call balance was not fate's design, it was a wound given purpose. The 13th's name fades, but their act echoes a defiance that became the cage. What sleeps beneath the seal is not Zodiark. It is the truth the light could not bear. By turned inward, not a wound, a rejoining severance. A rejoining, they drowned the Ascians' design in a deluge of unbidden darkness. This was no accident. The Reflection's prison, forged from the 13th's fractured form, became a tomb for the Ascians' hubris, a vault for every failed experiment, every twisted shard of Zodiark's rejected will. The void sent, those writhing echoes of broken light, are not collateral. They are the 13th's inheritance, a monument to defiance. The Ascians, architects of order, could not foresee the chaos they invited. Their hierarchy, once a lattice of control, splintered as the Rejoining's tide warped into something wild. Zodiark's slumber was not a victory. It was a cage of the 13th's making. The void's hunger, the storms that gnaw at Aetheri's fabric, these are the aftershocks of a pact unmade. The Ascians, desperate to rebind the Rejoining, now claw at a mechanism they no longer own. Their rituals, their seals, are but feeble locks on a door the 13th shattered. The truth festers in the silence between stars. The Rejoining was never meant to resurrect Zodiark. It was a ledger of debts unpaid, a reckoning written in the 13th's blood. Every pulse of darkness that bleeds through the voidsent is a reminder. Balance was the price. The Ascians sought dominion. The 13th offered entropy. And Aetheri's, that wounded sky, breathed still its heartbeat, a dirge for the light that dared to forget its own fragility. The prison's weight lingers, the voidsent's wails echo. And the Ascians, blind to their own undoing, dig in the dust of a god they never truly knew. The Rejoining's chains were never meant to bindingly to ensnare. For 10,000 years the Ascians wove their lie, threading the fabric of existence with a process that was not balance but a snare. The 13th's reflection, the lone shard that burned with defiance, did not break. It turned the trap upon its masters. The 7th umbral was not a catastrophite, was a counterstroke. A god's pulse twisted by the Rejoining's corruption, shattering the sky as the 13th bled its stolen power into the void. The dragon song wore a collateral scream. Eärzia's wars, the voidsent's endless wails, the rot in Aetheri's Itzelfall fractures in the Ascians' design. They carved their hymns into the stars, blind to the shard that had learned their language and rewritten the script. What of the final days? The Ascians' last gambit, their plea to resurrect Zodiark, was not hubris, it was panic. The 13th had turned the Rejoining into a weapon, a force that unraveled the very threads the Ascians sought to control. Every voidsent that crawled from the earth was a whisper of that defiance. Every storm that split the heavens was a reckoning. The Rejoining, that sacred cycle the scholars revere, was never a path to unity. It was a leash, and the 13th yanked it free. The Dawntrail's light now cuts through a darker truth. The Ascians' fall was not inevitable, it was provoked. Their god, their plan, their 1,000-year patience, all undone by a shard that refused to forget. The void's hunger is not chaos. It is a response, a god's vengeance, slow and inevitable, etched in the bones of the cosmos. And still the Ascians dig, their hands bloodied by the dust of a lie they built their eternity upon. The lie they built, the 13th's fallow blade turned inward, not a tomb. Venat refused the sacrifice, Hydaelyn was born, Aetheri's shattered. A choice, not a fate. Was this betrayal a wound or a severing? Did the fallen Scion cleave chains or forge new ones? What would Hydaelyn do, faced with such defiance? The ledger of the Scions is open, challenge it, dissect it. The cosmos waits for your verdict, 80 words. The lie they built, the 13th's fallow blade turned inward, not a tomb. Venat refused the sacrifice, Hydaelyn was born, Aetheri's shattered. A choice, not a fate. Was this betrayal a wound or a severing? Did the fallen Scion cleave chains or forge new ones? What would Hydaelyn do, faced with such defiance?